Welcome to today's Draw Along with Lauren Cook for the Festival of Nature. I'm Ellie Bladen, I'm a member of the crew for the festival, and I'll be hosting today's event so that alongside Lauren's amazing tutorial, we can find out more about her research, how she combines science and art, and about the fascinating creature we'll be drawing today. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, the great thing about today's event is that you don't need any artistic experience and you only need very minimal equipment. Now, we'll go over that in a bit more detail in a minute. This really is just a chance to let your creative side out and have some fun. So it's time to introduce today's special guest and our guide for today, Lauren Cook. Lauren is a PhD student at the Natural History Museum in London, studying molecular ecology, but she proves that science and art don't need to be kept separate because she's also a freelance artist and award-winning stop-motion animator. She uses beautiful animations to bring animals and their ecosystems to life and highlight the conservation issues affecting them. Lauren, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Ellie. That's a really lovely introduction.
Oh no, totally warranted. So before I met you, I'd already seen your animations on social media and through various ecology organisations and conservation charities. And I was just struck by the intricacy of them and also the way that you really kind of capture the essence of animals and their stories through your art. So I'm super excited. It's great to be able to learn from you today.
Yes, yeah, I'm really excited. Planned out how we're going to draw the little fox, and yeah, looking forward to showing everyone how to do it. Because yeah, you're right. You don't need any artistic talent. There's no such thing as talent, I don't reckon. It's just practice and knowing where to start. So should be good.
Well, that's great. So I know that people have quite mixed opinions on foxes, but I absolutely love them. They're just a beautiful native mammal with a bunch of charisma. And I'm hoping by the end of this, we'll be converting a lot more people into the fox love camp.
All right.
Like you said, so we don't need too much stuff. Mm-hmm. Before we start, what equipment will you be using and what do people at home need to get involved?
Yeah, so, well, if you, basically all you need at first is just a pencil and a rubber. Because we're going to be drawing some shapes and then rubbing it out, so it's useful to have a little rubber there. And then I can just show you these coloured pencils if you've got any. If you want to make your fox blue, green, doesn't matter, do whatever you like. But we're using this sort of just in the warm colour range, like yellows, oranges, and a black and a white pencil is really useful. So yeah, any pencil you've got.
I've got my bits and bobs ready here, so I'm going to give it my best shot too, along with everyone at home. And I guess we'll find out how good at multitasking I am.
Yeah, good luck.
So when you decide that you want to draw something, how do you start the process?
Yeah, so I can show you if you want. We can get going. So usually when I start drawing, I'll look at the picture. I usually draw from a reference image because it makes it a bit more realistic. And the more you look at it and practice it, the more you start understanding the shapes. So for this fox, we're going to start with a few circles, basically. So if you draw a line just down the middle of the page, then I don't know if you can quite see that. Then this is going to be our sort of center. We can start planning out where the shapes are going to go. Then somewhere in the top part of the page, we're just going to draw a circle and it's all going to become clear. So there's your first circle. Then just sort of overlapping this circle on the left side, we're going to draw an oval, which is just a bit sort of similar width, but just a bit longer than the circle. Then again, overlapping this shape is another exact same shape. So another big oval, just sort of off center and overlapping. Okay. Then we've got basically another, I'm just going to say oval all the time, another oval, which just sort of overlaps this bottom one. And just a little, if you draw a line as well at the bottom, just remind you where the floor is. Then we can also draw another sort of circle, just sort of leave a slight gap between your small oval and there's a circle there. And finished.
What I can already tell you is that you have much more perfect circles and ovals than me. I like how this is already, it's coming together in ways that us non-artistic folk can check. I mean, I say non-artistic. I'm sure there are lots of people at home who are art pros who feel really comfortable drawing, but I bet there are lots of others who kind of think they can't draw. For those of us who were maybe told at school that we weren't very good at art, what is your advice for today?
Well, firstly, I think no one should be told they're not good at art. I think that's just really harsh. And it's mainly, I think probably everyone starts out with a very similar ability, but you might just have more of an interest in art than someone else. And so you spend a lot more time doing it, and then you start getting a lot better. And I would just say that if, especially in lockdown, people have really let their creative sides out because there's been a lot more time at home and trying to entertain yourself. And I'd just say find something that you are interested in, that you like doing, like whether it's knitting or embroidery or any kind of drawing or painting, and then just start doing it for yourself. And you can find really great kits, like starter kits, painting by numbers, that kind of thing. And you start just sort of learning a little bit of skill and just enjoying it. And then you can call yourself artistic too.
I love that. That's very reassuring. Okay, I'm feeling a little bit more confident about this now. So where are we going to go from our circles and ovals?
Yes. So if you draw a line across the middle of this circle, so it kind of looks like a target, then that's just going to be our little guide for putting face in on the fox. So from there, we're just going to get to the end of this line that you've just drawn and draw a kind of diagonal line at about 45 degrees. And then go to the bottom of this line here and just kind of join it up. And I should say, don't press too hard on these because we're going to be rubbing it out. So people sometimes make the mistake of really etching these circles in and then they get stuck. So yeah, just kind of this is just a guide. And I don't know if you can you kind of see how it's going to be a fox?
I actually can. I'm amazed. I was just thinking, like, I think I'm seeing a snout coming in here.
Yeah,
that's impressive.
Yeah. So okay, we're going to add in some ears just to guide. So draw a little triangle on the top, and the ears are kind of the same size. So I'm just going to draw a line here to remind myself how high up to go. Then just draw another triangle here, and we're going to join it into the head a bit later on. So basically just draw these two lines there. Okay.
Brilliant. Yes, I'm up to date with you.
Brilliant. Cool. Yeah, so this is our sort of skeleton of the drawing, and then all you have to do really is just kind of add in some lines that kind of merge it all together. So if we just draw an arc that goes all the way around this oval and meets at the bottom of your bottom oval there. So this little foxy is going to be sitting upright and he's kind of looking out to the side, checking out.
Lovely. Oh,
all over there. Then another one which comes underneath your top circle, around this top oval, around the bottom oval, and right down to the floor there.
I'm just amazed at how quickly we're actually getting a fox shape here. It's incredible.
Exactly. It really helps. It helps having these shapes in.
It does.
Sort of make sure that you're not making it, too thin. Everything in nature, there's a lot of curves.
Yeah.
My art teacher always used to look over my shoulder and say, "There's a bulge there, and I always said like bulge there.
Yeah, we're working with bulges today. I like.
Yeah, exactly. So then this little circle here is going to be the tail. So we're just going to draw a line that kind of joins it up. Don't worry too much because it's mainly sort of about the colouring with putting all the fur in and everything. Then we'll just add in a leg, the two front legs, which come down from the sort of bottom of your first oval and just go basically straight down to that line that you've drawn.
Yeah.
And then another one which is parallel to that. And then go to the edge of this oval again and just a line straight down. And another line, make sure that it's kind of a similar distance to how you've drawn the other leg, otherwise it's going to look a bit weird.
We want symmetrical legs. Okay, yes. I'll manage that.
And this is actually basically all the legs that you can see here. Then it's just feet. So we can add in some little feet here. They kind of have like, from this angle, they have little front on toes. So I'm just going to draw in these kind of hoof things just to guide us. Then basically it's just more circles. So in the photo that I was using, you could see about 4 toes on that one. Maybe another 4 toes if you've got room on this one.
So do you generally work from photos when you're deciding to create something?
Yeah, I do. I think unless you've drawn something loads and loads, it's always better to draw from a reference image, because it really is about like understanding the shapes. So if someone said off the top of your head, draw a fox, then I'd probably, I mean, it would be okay, but I'd probably get it completely wrong. You know?
I'm glad you say that, because I've always thought I'm not very good at imagining things, you know, in my mind's eye. But it's nice to hear someone who is actually an artist say that you kind of use references as well.
Yeah, I think definitely. I think potentially cartoonists and things like that, you can draw more from your mind's eye and how you've interpreted it in the past, or you can sort of, it doesn't have to look exactly like it is in the photo. Not that mine do anyway, but it's nice to absorb a bit of the character of the actual creature, I think, or whatever it is you're drawing. Yeah, so we're just going to put this last foot in as well. So just draw a little arc here at the bottom of the oval. And then we're just going to add in some more toes. So just another little 4 circles here.
4 toes, great.
Yeah.
I'm getting good at toes. That's what
And I've ended up drawing my legs closer together than I did the first time. So I don't know where, I can't really put in my other leg, but I'm just going to, it doesn't really need to. You can just sort of hint at it, maybe put another toe in there because you might be able to see that back leg in that toe. Yes, so there we go.
So we have our outline of our fox. That is so exciting.
Yeah. How are you doing?
Right. Well, you know what? I thought I'd be doing worse, I've got to say. Let me try and get that into the...
Oh, that's brilliant. That's so good.
It's there. It's coming.
You're the artistic one. You can lead the next one.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's down to the shapes. It's having someone teach you in a step-by-step way. It's really encouraging. It's brilliant.
Oh, that's great. That's really good. Okay, right. So the next bit, people always think, oh, it's really hard. I don't know how to draw faces. But actually, it's just shapes again. So foxes have these really lovely, like, big eyebrows, I've realised from looking at loads of pictures. And it's kind of like this shape. So I'll just draw an example. So they're kind of like, I don't know, like a teardrop. Almost. And it goes along this midline. So, and it will take up basically the whole side of the head. So you basically are going to draw this shape just along that line that we've drawn. And then on the other side of this circle, we're just going to copy exactly what we've done, what we've seen here, this shape. And it kind of comes out and in, because of course they would have another eyebrowy thing on the other side that we can't see.
I see. Yes, of course. Okay, got the symmetry.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Then for the nose, we're basically going to draw a mushroom. So it's this kind of shape.
Right, that makes sense. Okay, yes. So where are we popping that?
Yeah. And it's just going to come to the end of this triangle that we've drawn. I'm just giving it a little bump there because it's not completely flat.
Sure.
Then mushroom up.
So there's a teeny tiny mushroom right on the end. That's very cute. I like that.
And that's your nose. Then basically, from the bottom of the mushroom, you can put your smile in there.
Oh.
One. And they have quite sort of long snouts, so it goes back almost to, you know, where this eyebrow is.
They do. They're quite sort of dog-like with their snouts, aren't they? I mean, they're canids.
Yeah. I think they're more related to cats, are they, than dogs? Have you heard?
Are they?
I think so.
Oh, okay. They look quite doggish, don't they?
Yeah, they do. They definitely do. Okay, so then we're gonna just follow this line that we've created for the neck.
Yeah.
And just give it a bit of a underneath jaw there, which joins up to our smile.
Okay.
And then you can just see a tiny bit of the muzzle on the other side.
Great.
We've almost got everything down there. The faces, I'm just going to roll out this line because I've made it look a bit strange.
Oh, looking quite sweet already. So while we're doing this, I'd be interested to know, I mean, you do a PhD at the Natural History Museum. Mm-hmm. What exactly do you do your PhD on? We said broadly molecular biology. What exactly do you do?
Yes, so I am studying mainly environmental DNA, which is kind of a method that is sort of up and coming in biodiversity research. And it's where you can basically track what's in the environment by taking a sample, so say of water or soil or something, and every organism will leave DNA behind. So it's kind of like forensic science or something, like a crime scene. And any of this DNA that's left behind, you can work out what species it belongs to. So it's basically a way of seeing what's out there without actually having to see it. So I just sort of was really inspired by the whole idea and thought that is what I wanted to do.
Amazing. So do you actually go out into the field and collect environmental DNA?
Yeah, so I will do, and I've been doing it so far for the Chinese mitten crab, which is an invasive crab which lives, well, it's all around the UK. It's from China and Korea, and it's invaded basically the whole world. But yeah, we've been going down to the Thames and getting scoops of water and of sediment and just trying to find this crab.
Amazing. And how do you think that's going to sort of help, you know, knowing they're there, how will that help potentially stopping them being so invasive?
Yeah, so once we sort of have developed this technique and we really are sure that it's 100% working and it's quick and it's much cheaper than trying to look for it just by eye and collecting them, you can then, once you know exactly where they are, you can start putting in defensive measures like they create huge burrows and banks, and sometimes they need reinforcements. They can interfere with fishing practices and things like that. But you can also see whether ships are actually accidentally transporting them in their ballast water, which is like water that they use to stabilize ships. And that's how a lot of these invasive marine species get about. So then you could start testing this ballast water and say, oh, you've actually got crabs in there.
That's so interesting. So could you detect a fox using environmental DNA if it was in your neighborhood?
You could. Yes, you could. So foxes, like anything, leave behind DNA. So for example, they might leave behind fur if they get snagged on a fence or something, or in their droppings, or they're in their waste. Also just any kind of body fluid like saliva, blood, God forbid, anything like that will sort of stick around in the environment for a while. So if you took a sample of water from a pond or something, or some soil where you think there might be a fox, you can then look for that fox DNA in your sample and say yes, it's here, or yes, or no, it's not here.
Incredible. Okay, so the fox cannot stay incognito if you've got some environmental DNA scientists around, because you'd find it anyway.
Exactly.
Well, should we go back to our drawing then? What is our next stage?
Okay, so next we're going to just pop the eye in. So the eye sort of is this kind of shape. I'll show it in big again. It's kind of this teardrop again, which because it's on the side, so, but it's got a bit more of a flat bottom because they're kind of like Egyptian-y looking, I think, you know, with the on the pharaohs drawings, things like that.
It's a very pretty shape, isn't it? I hadn't really appreciated that.
Exactly. So yeah, we've got this kind of teardrop shape. They've also got the inner bit of the eye comes down a little bit like that. Okay. And then we've got just the actual eyeball. You can kind of see the slight edges of it. And one thing that I'll say, so I'll show you how to put this in as well, is that when you're drawing, you should always leave a tiny bit of light in the eye, which kind of makes it look a little bit more real. So I'm going to put my light up here. And then when you come around to it, you basically can just colour this whole bit in. Because I think their eyes are kind of like black and then dark brown and orange and everything. So but we're drawing it much smaller, so see how much space you have.
I quite like having a little practice like that because I feel a little bit more confident when I've got it on the side, you know.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so we're going to go basically to the end of this teardrop. It kind of goes into the eyebrow. I think I actually made this a tiny bit too far over, so I'm just gonna.
That is the good thing about having your rubber, isn't it?
Exactly. No pressure to get it right first time. So I'm going to put my eye in just here. So I'm going to draw again that tear. And this is again on this midway line that we've drawn. And kind of more straightish line along the bottom. Then the inner eye bit that comes down there. Okay. It's funny because if you get them slightly wonky, they look evil.
I know this is a bit I think I really need to concentrate on because I think you tend to feel quite a lot of the personality of an animal in its eyes, right?
Definitely. Exactly. So nearly there. Drawing those eyeball bits in, and we're remembering to leave that bit of light at the top.
Yes.
And just drawing that pupil in there. And there you go.
Beautiful. Okay.
And these sort of, again, these shapes are guides, and when we put all the colours in, if you want to, we can make it look really furry as well. So right, all we've got left really is the ears. So this ear kind of just blends into the head there. So it's just on the angle on the side. So that's basically what we need to do for that. Then this one comes right down to this eyebrow.
Oh, okay.
They've got quite big ears. So you just match that all up there. And then we can add in the inner bits. They've got like fur, which you can just draw a little bit of fur in. We can colour this all in. And they've got black around the outside, so we can make that quite thick. And that is basically it.
That's a box. Oh, I love it. This is a much better fox than I could have drawn on my own. So this is brilliant.
Oh, good. Oh, I'm really pleased.
Do you want to see my? This is so far. You know, he's looking pretty foxy.
Oh my gosh, that looks so good. I'm so impressed. That's brilliant.
I'm really happy with this.
Oh, I'm really pleased. But yeah, so next step, just get your rubber, and we're just going to rub out some of these lines that we've created because we're going to colour it all in, and we don't really need these guides anymore. But also, if you've got more time, you know, you can spend ages making it perfect and everything.
But it's amazing because when you're taking away these lines, it wouldn't be obvious at all that you needed these circles to create that shape.
Yeah, exactly. But it would be difficult just to get going and just draw these shapes just off the top of your head, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. And the nice thing about this is if someone, like you said, if someone does have extra time, then they can, you know, spend a while really perfecting those lines or you know, colouring it really intricately.
Exactly.
But either way, you've got your starting shape.
That's it. So yeah, we can. I'll show you just some techniques as well, and then we can just sort of just keep colouring in. But
that's wonderful.
So the first thing is for this nose. What I find is noses have got kind of like a square bit on the top. So if you leave a bit of light, I'll show you on my practice one here on this mushroom. If you basically leave this top section white, and then you can colour, you can get your black pencil or you can use a normal pencil and colour in the bottom section, then you get that shiny kind of wet nose thing that they have.
Oh, I love that. Okay, brilliant.
So I'm going to transfer that onto my nose here.
Got a little shiny nose. I love it. Yeah, that's great. That's great.
And then you basically just get scribbling with your colour. Fur, I love drawing fur because you can really just basically be a child and just scribble the whole thing in.
Oh, amazing. This sounds really silly, right? I remember when I was I was probably like 3 and I got told off by a teacher for colouring in the wrong way. And I think ever since that, I think I've been like a little bit, worried about my colouring in. So it's nice to hear you say, just scribble, just go for it,
Yeah, I'm sure they would tell me I was doing it wrong as well.
But I'm feeling like there is no wrong way. So there we go.
Exactly.
It's one of the things you remember, isn't it?
Definitely. Like my bulge.
Oh dear. So while we're giving this a little colour in, I'd love to know, have you ever actually personally seen a fox in the flesh?
Yes, I have. Well, so I've grown up in London, and we have quite a few foxes around. You mainly see them at night, sometimes really boldly just walking along the road on the pavement. I actually saw one a couple of days ago that was all curled up underneath a derelict kind of train station thing. It looked really sweet, just in the middle of the day. But yeah, my friends had fox cubs in their garden and they're amazing.
Oh my goodness.
So
see,
have
this is
seen them?
Well, yes, but mainly in London again. So I'm just a bit outside Cambridge, so I'm quite sort of countryside area, and there are actually more foxes in the countryside, I believe, in rural areas in the UK than in cities. But because in cities they're just so much bolder, people are living there, so you're much more likely to see them. It's harder for them to hide. It's generally people in cities who tend to see them.
Really?
So I just, so when I go to London and I see one, I'm still absolutely amazed. Whereas I think if a lot of people who live there see them as a bit of a pest,
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you see all your all the rubbish out in the road and things like that, but realistically, they've just done really well to survive in the urban conditions that we've put everything in.
I know, it's amazing, isn't it? It's one of those things they're sort of thought of as pests, and that's actually quite a good indicator of what generalist species they are, because they can eat, if you see them in the countryside, they are probably eating small birds, earthworms, small mammals, but even also like berries and things like that. But
really,
so they're complete omnivores, totally generalist.
Wow.
But then like you said, if you see them in the city, they are probably eating bits from bins. Although I will say that other things can also break into your bins, so it might not be a fox doing that. I'm very pro fox here.
Yeah.
The problem that we have more in the countryside, I'd say, is people are upset because foxes can get into chicken coops, which is it's understandable.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so you'll find I used to know someone who absolutely hated foxes because when she was younger, so a fox got into her chicken coop and just killed all her chickens. And I've heard that kind of story before. And foxes tend to get quite a bad reputation because if they get into a chicken coop, they will often basically kill all the chickens and then just take one. And people interpret this as, foxes must be evil, foxes must be nasty. But actually it's more related to their prey drive. So as a behavioral ecologist, this doesn't really surprise me so much because we don't really know exactly why they do it. But it's the best idea at the moment is the fact that because they're predators, they have this prey drive, which basically means that when a prey animal starts panicking and running around, they have this natural reaction to kind of chase it and grab it. So when they get into like a hen house or a chicken coop, all the chickens start panicking, and their sort of evolutionary prey drive just kicks in, and they'll, grab any chicken that's kind of freaking out and acting like prey. And, it's understandable the chickens are doing that. It's understandable the fox is doing that.
Yeah.
But also there's some evidence that if you did end up leaving the chickens there, the fox might come back and take them, because foxes are a bit like like jackdaws and crows and squirrels, where they will actually cache food. So caching is, where they will hide or store food for a time when they might need it. Yeah, they do. So sometimes if you find stuff, you might find like an egg in your flower patch, and it's because the fox has actually found it and cached it there for later. Yeah,
that's amazing.
I know. So some people think that maybe if you left the dead chickens, the fox might actually come back and take them.
I see, because they're going to eat them later.
Possibly. So the evidence is, there's not a lot of evidence because not a lot of people sort of done science on this, but it's, I guess the thing to remember is they're not evil. They've just got an evolutionary prey drive, like a lot of things.
Yeah.
So it's, but obviously if you come down and you find all your chickens dead, then people are likely to clean up that mess, and that's understandable. Obviously it must be very interesting.
Yeah. I had a similar prejudice because I used to have rabbits. And then you're always so frightened that they might come and get your rabbits. But there's of course things that you can do. You just have to sort of just make sure they're in their hutch at night, and fine. You can't blame the foxes for needing to eat.
I think that's the thing, and I don't know whether it's because in the UK we don't have wolves or bears, so maybe there's something a bit scary to us about a predator with big sharp teeth that eats fluffy things. Do you think that's kind of part of it? Is that?
Yeah, they're basically our only sort of mid predator left. That's common, aren't they? But that makes them even more important for the ecosystem. Exactly. Yeah.
Do you have any favourite fox facts?
I heard recently actually that the urban foxes were evolving. Have you heard this?
Yes. Yeah, so go ahead.
So their snout shapes are changing. Their snouts are changing shape to be better at urban foraging and sort of in dustbins, I suppose, or the type of birds that we have here. And that their brains were getting smaller and looked more like domestic dogs. Is that what you heard?
Yes. So it's kind of an example of what evolutionary biologists will describe as domestication syndrome, and it's similar to the way that if you compare a domestic dog to a wolf, you see things like shorter snouts, smaller brains, just things that sort of almost adapt them for a domestic lifestyle. And it's interesting that apparently there is evidence. There was a paper published I think at the start of this year showing that we're sort of seeing that in domestic foxes. Sorry, not domestic, urban foxes as well.
That's mad.
So there's still one species, and they can still sort of, mate urban and countryside foxes if they want to. But there is some evidence they're changing. So it's interesting.
Really interesting. So they're are they red foxes, aren't they?
Yeah, these are red foxes that we have. And that's a really good point, right? Because if you look around the world, you can see such an amazing variety of foxes, like Arctic foxes, absolutely beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
They don't have these colours. The thing that I love about, you choosing the red fox is just the beautiful colours that we're being able to use today.
Exactly.
So I don't know, do you think what's the way that people can learn to see foxes more as, I guess, wonderful wildlife and less of a pest?
It's a good point. I think what we're doing today is probably, as you said at the beginning, it's going to help, because the more that when you're drawing something, the more you look at it, you start appreciating it, and it gives you sort of thinking time around the animal. And so I challenge anyone to spend a weekend drawing an animal and not love it by the end, because you become so interested in it, you start seeing them everywhere. Because when you start thinking about something and then suddenly you see loads of them.
Yeah.
And so doing that kind of thing does make you really appreciate the animal, or and how beautiful it is and how it evolved to be like that. It's just mind-blowing, really.
No. The other thing I love about foxes, which I think is partly why some people hate them, is their communication. So living in London, you might have heard fox screaming.
Yeah. It can be really loud, and you think it's a human the first time you hear it as well. Exactly,
because it does sound like someone with a quite high-pitched voice, just absolutely screaming in terror. But it's usually the female foxes. So female foxes, which we call vixens, it tends to be around, particularly in the winter, and it's when females are communicating to males that they're ready to mate. So you might hear in return a male fox making a sort of barking like sound.
Oh, really?
Which I totally get, that if you're in bed at 4 a.m. and you hear a blood-curdling scream, you probably are not going to be too happy about it. But as someone who doesn't hear this so much, I think that's very cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's very unusual.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? And there's also studies that have shown that foxes also make, I think they've been recorded making 28 other distinct sounds to communicate with each other. So, but those sounds are a bit more subtle than the, screaming in the middle of the night. But I wonder whether that's also a way to sort of make people appreciate them. They, like we communicate in subtle ways, they also do.
Definitely. That's really interesting. And they'll be saying sort of like, I'm a good mate, or...
Yeah, exactly. Or get away from my territory, I suppose. But
are they territorial then?
They're very territorial, yeah. So actually, that's another nice thing about them. If you do see, like if foxes come into your garden or come outside your street quite a lot, you can be fairly confident that you're probably seeing the same foxes again and again. And that's kind of nice because you can get quite familiar with the sight of them and maybe start recognizing them.
I saw a video once of a guy who had foxes coming into his garden. He started filming them and he really got to know them. And it sort of got him out of his depression because he had sort of a reason for every day he wanted to see the foxes, and they all had different personalities and slightly different faces. And
that's really sweet.
Yeah, it's lovely.
But I think that's a nice thing. Like, I mean, yeah, they're territorial, so probably if you're a fox, it's not so nice. But at least if you're a human, you can kind of appreciate that you might have your foxes on your patch,
Yeah, definitely. That is nice. I like to think that.
So tell me what you're doing here, because I'm seeing quite a lot of different shades that you're bringing in to kind of highlight different parts.
Yeah, so, well, firstly, I just added in some little dots. We're going to put the whiskers in at some point.
Yeah.
Like a cat or a dog, similar to that. And I've just sort of started shading. For me, I'm saying that my light is coming from this direction.
Okay.
So I'm trying to think of keeping the things in this plane lighter, and on this side it's going to be more shaded. And another sort of trick that you should think about when you're colouring in things in or shading things is to make the light bits as light as possible and the dark bits as dark as possible.
Okay.
It really gives it some sort of 3D vibrancy rather than one colour, sort of one shade in the whole thing. So I always think about this arrow, like where my light is, so that it can remind you.
Oh, that's a really good idea. Okay. So if someone was, whatever colours someone's using, whether they're using blues or whatever, if they just find their darker colours and concentrate them away from that arrow, basically.
Exactly. Yeah, so on this this eyebrow, I'm leaving that quite white. I might come back in later and put in some sort of lighter shades there. Then on the top of the muzzle here, I'm leaving that white as well.
Right. Yeah, I can see what you're doing there.
And this is just where their fur is white. So they have like really nice white bellies all the way down. So and yeah, we'll colour all of these bits in quite dark. So I'm going to take maybe my dark brown now. That's dark brown. This bit is really quite shaded. And just where we drew that circle, just going to colour all around. And I'm just being really scribbly. With coloured pencils, people don't realise, but you can actually rub it out. So if you do it wrong, you can actually try and rub it. and they blend quite nicely too. So sort of putting more and more layers in, and just keep working on it until you're pleased. It's actually just really therapeutic and nice to do.
It's really therapeutic. I know. I thought I was going to have real trouble talking and doing this, but now that we've got to the bit where I'm basically just scribbling, it's almost a bit like meditation. It's very nice.
Definitely. Yeah, that's great.
So have you always thought of yourself as artistic?
I wouldn't say, I don't know. Well, I've always loved art, and it was always sort of my favourite subjects at school, things like that. But then I went on to do biology after school at uni, and so at that point the art kind of took a bit of a back seat. But it's been great recently to really pick it up again, because I feel like I'm doing it lots, and it is a big part of my life. I don't know what I would be without it, really. So maybe I am artistic, I don't know.
Oh, you're definitely artistic. It's just interesting to sort of know that you've been doing this for such a long time. I mean, at what point did you start using art for science communication?
Yeah, so after uni, I went on a couple of big trips with my older brother, and he's really into his filming, photography, and everything, and adventure sports. So we started making some little videos which were about our travels, and with a bit of science in them. So we did a little bit about climate change. We went to the Great Barrier Reef, and he made an animation about that. But I don't think we realised we were doing science communication. I don't think I'd ever even heard of it. And then I did my master's in conservation research, and I started making animations to explain sort of concepts and things for presentations that I was doing. And I found that it was quite a good way to keep people engaged in potentially a more boring part of the presentation, or explain some kind of complex idea that was a lot easier to get across in a visual way. Because a lot of people are visual learners, and they will just understand it or remember it a lot better if you can animate it or draw it or something.
Oh, completely.
Yeah, that's kind of how I got into it. And then after that, I got an internship doing it at the British Ecological Society. And now I sort of work on a more commissions basis. And it's really nice to be able to do it alongside my PhD. I can use both sides of my brain in my daily life. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, at school, art and science are generally treated as being two completely different ends of the spectrum. Like, do you think that science and art should go together naturally?
Absolutely. Do you know, it's funny, you meet so many people who are scientists but are really interested in art, or they do a lot of photography as well. And I think it's actually really quite a similar personality type that likes both. I don't know whether it's potentially attention to detail or something, or liking to understand things, and they're both really just ways of interpreting what you're seeing around you.
Yeah,
in science and art. So yeah, I think it would be great if they were taught together. It'd be brilliant.
Definitely. I mean, how do you think we can get more scientists exploring their work through art? Like, should scientists try to become artists, or should we be employing more artists to kind of bridge that gap?
Yeah, well, probably both. I think more of both. There are some really great initiatives out there that are trying to match people up. There's one called Lifeology, where you can sort of create a profile, and then they can match people with their projects. But also, if you are interested in art and you haven't necessarily done loads of it before, just start doing it. And people have been making stock frame animations and things out of Lego, or using other bits that doesn't involve loads of drawing, or even if it's sort of basic drawings, and people love them. You really get your message across in such a sort of more digestible format. And yeah, I think people should just start doing it, and we should get a lot more artists involved in outreach at university, and everything like that. any research.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you mentioned the message, and that's something that comes across strongly in a lot of your work, is this conservation message. Do you remember there was a point at which you started caring about conservation, or have you just sort of always loved nature and it came naturally from that?
Yeah, I think I probably a bit of both actually. I've always loved animals and sort of being outside, and I thought maybe when I was younger that I'd like to be a vet, either a vet or an artist.
Yeah.
And then I studied biology, and then it came about in a really funny way that you wouldn't have thought that would sort of send someone into conservation. But I did a couple of seasons out in the Alps over the winter as like a chalet host, and I just basically was snowboarding for 4 hours a day, spending time in such a beautiful place. And by the end of it, I just sort of realized, like, I shouldn't just be enjoying this for myself. Felt quite selfish, like I'm just sort of using all this nature and having a great time, but actually I've got skills that could help protect it. And that sort of, I realized that was sort of my main passion, and that's what I wanted to go into. So yeah.
That's amazing, because I suppose you're a biologist already, but you wouldn't necessarily think that, somewhere that you're having so much fun, that would have such a profound effect on you.
Exactly. I just didn't want the snow to melt, really.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard, isn't it? Because we hear constant news about, how biodiversity declines are happening, and it can feel quite overwhelming. Do you feel kind of generally quite optimistic about conservation?
I think so. I think you have to be optimistic to be a conservationist, really.
Yeah.
I'm sure you find the same with all of your studies. Like, every bit that people are contributing to the knowledge base, and each sort of decision that people make at home where they think they're helping the environment, they all add up and they all help. And when you do see those good news stories, like the panda recently became not endangered anymore, and that was the flagship for endangered species for so long. That, yeah, it's amazing. And especially recently, sort of this past year, a lot of people connected with nature on their doorstep. And I think it's a really amazing chance to just keep the ball rolling, really, while it's in the forefront of everyone's mind.
Absolutely. So, I mean, how did nature help you over the pandemic?
Well, I was in London during the winter, and had sort of my one patch, which is near the house, where I went for a walk basically every day. And I think, when you see it change slightly over the course of the winter and into spring, you start noticing all the little bits that are coming up. I had long-tailed tits in the tree outside my window where I was working, and I would always be sort of on a call, and then I'd be like, there's long-tailed tits.
I know the feeling exactly.
They're so cheering. They're just like adorable, and you think, if they can get on with their lives and it's bleak outside, then I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
Life continues, and there's the added bonus that, like, birds are just really adorable and beautiful. So I think birding was an unexpected hobby now that I have.
I know, I've got very attached to the starlings in my garden.
Have you?
Yeah, we both realised that over lockdown we were sort of spending, like less money on commuting. So I think we basically ploughed all that money into bird food instead. Really? And we just ended up with these hilarious, like, chatty gangs of starlings in our garden.
Really nice.
So yeah, I totally know what you mean about birds.
Yeah. Starlings have amazing songs as well.
They do.
They're really varied, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what kind of, like, conservation actions do you sort of incorporate into your life on a daily basis?
So sort of all the, anything that you can do, like reusing things, buying secondhand. I think the main one probably is diet. So I don't eat any meat, and I sort of try and cut down on all my other animal products, like fish and everything I don't really eat. And I feel like that is a big thing that you can do for the environment on a personal scale. And then it really does make a difference. You know, it's also win-wins, because if you walk or cycle to work or to wherever you're going, you feel good, you get some exercise, but you're also just pumping slightly less carbon dioxide out into the atmosphere. And so I think it's just, if you have the incentive to try and do something, there are really easy ways that will benefit you and the environment, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also one of these things of, you know, we can do so many things in our own lives, and of course there are also ways in which we can kind of influence policy change as well, like you know, just as simple as writing to your MP if you disagree about, you know, an environmental law, because you know, together we're actually pretty influential. We're sort of stronger than the sum of our parts.
Definitely. So, exactly.
Lots of ways
to volunteering for things is a great way.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to teach you one quick technique.
Oh, amazing. Yes. So,
why I said we need a white pencil is before colouring pencils, it's really nice to blend with. So once you've got your kind of base colours down, like if you want to put any sort of yellowy kind of tint into any of your drawing, just like, I'm just being really rough, and then you basically get your white pencil and you can blend it in, and if you do it the same kind of scribbly motion that we've been doing, it starts to look quite a bit more like fur.
Oh, that's incredible. I love that.
White pencil.
I'd always wondered what the white pencil was for.
Really?
I was like, surely on white paper it doesn't really make a difference.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just blending, and if you can press quite hard, then you see the paper has a bit of a grain and you get all these white sort of patches in, but the white pencil basically just smooths it all out, and gives it a bit of a slightly different texture.
Yeah, I love all the different colours that you're getting in here through not using that many pencils, actually. It seems to be mainly blending.
Yeah, exactly. Just some bits press slightly lighter than others. You don't need to put loads in. I always put lots of colours in that on there.
I would actually love to see people who try doing this and use a different colour scheme as well. Like I'd love to see a blue fox. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah, I'd love to see, you know, those like a sort of elfish blue one.
Yeah. And you also, the way that you're doing some of the shading looks like you're sort of following body contours. Is that what you're trying to do?
Yeah, exactly. So if you imagine there's kind of, you know, you've got your skull, there's going to be a bit of a shadow under here. I've just kind of lightly started putting that in there. If you've got a black pencil, you can put a little bit in under the chin, just there. Yeah. And this bit's going to be a bit darker anyway because of where our light's coming from. And then, yeah, because his neck is kind of going around on that angle, so the white belly travels all the way down in that same kind of curve that we put in.
Right.
And they've got really black legs, so just colouring those in quite dark as well.
I noticed that. Okay, so are you sort of purposefully leaving a little bit of white on the front as kind of to a glint of the light?
Yeah, exactly. So just this slightly lighter bit, because they don't just have flat legs. They're they're curved sort of cylinders like our own appendages. Yeah. So I was just leaving a bit of light in there, as you say, just to make it look a bit more 3D. And I've done the same thing with the toes as well. I've just left the white on the top of the toes, where the light would fall.
I see.
And then they've got kind of black feet. This back leg here. I've added in a line here where the leg would bend. And then just colour away to your heart's content.
Amazing. Your drawings seem to really capture the essence of the animal. How do you manage to incorporate personality into your drawings? Is it something you think about, or does it just happen naturally?
I think if once you practice it a few times, so if I'm doing something where personality is really important, like a pet portrait, I will always do 3 or 4 drawings before I do the final one. And it's actually really nice as well to meet the animal, because then you do get to know the personality a bit, and it's all just in the face, sort of, when we were saying earlier, like if you do the eyes slightly more slanted, it can just look really angry. If you keep it quite sort of wide and friendly, then it can look a bit sort of more happy. But yeah, there's a lot of little tiny nuances that will make personality change a bit. But yeah, adding a nice smile, I think it always helps, especially for those animals that do have similar kind of facial structure to, well, mammals and things. Then it's quite easy to do, really.
Do you have a favourite type of animal to draw? Like, do you prefer mammals or reptiles?
I like drawing all animals, really. I think animals with faces are fun because you can get that personality across, but also, you know, really colourful things. I heard it's a really unusual source for creative sort of inspiration, but in you know, the sort of Princess Diaries books, there's another one called All American Girl, and they did an art class where there was an egg in the centre of the room. And the sort of trap to fall into was to see the egg as just a white egg, but actually, once you actually looked a bit closer and you saw there was like blue light coming from one window, that it was on a red blanket, so there's red coming from underneath, and so there's all these different colours that are actually there. Once you train your eye into that, it actually sort of comes alive. So I love drawing things like that that's just sort of really colourful, and anything really. I don't think I have a favourite. No prejudice.
You love all animals. Is there a particular project that you've done recently, like maybe a conservation-based one, which has been particularly meaningful to you?
Yeah. Most recent one I did was for Hen Harrier Day. Have you heard of Hen Harrier Day?
Yes, I have. Why don't you tell people a little bit about it?
Yeah, so it's about, so the hen harrier is a bird of prey. It's a raptor, and it's our most persecuted bird in the UK. So it gets, unfortunately, illegally shot quite a fair bit, because they sort of roam around on grouse moors and interfere with some people. They have been known to take grouse. But so we should have a lot more of them in the UK than we do. There are very sort of sparse breeding pairs, and I got sort of commissioned to do an animation for them this year, and it was just really nice to sort of raise awareness as well as creating something that people enjoy watching, because then you don't really realise that you're being that there's a kind of call to action, and you don't realise that you now know about this issue, whereas before I didn't even know about hen harriers before I sort of heard about the day. So I think they do a really good job of getting the word out there, and how we can support the uplands for nature. So that was really good fun. They have some great people contributing to the day as well. It's really good.
I think it was Chris Packham was involved with that, wasn't he?
Yeah. Chris Packham and Megan McCubbin.
Yes, that's right.
And presenting it, and then they get all sorts of young naturalists in to talk about their work and interview artists, poets, authors. They sort of are really good at combining all of the different avenues.
And this is actually something that's brilliant about Festival of Nature. We've got so many different events coming up which are not specifically science. You know, they've all got nature applications, but range across the board. Bringing in the arts to sort of show how arts and sciences can go together brilliantly, and how we can use art as a way to connect with nature.
Exactly. And then you reach people that wouldn't think they were interested in science, and then you won, really.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't even have to particularly care about science that much to just enjoy watching nature and enjoy drawing a fox at the end of the day.
Next time I see a fox, I'm going to be really overexcited, I think.
I know. Especially with the pandemic, I hardly go to London at all. So next time I do and I see an urban fox, I'm going to be incredibly excited.
Definitely.
So where do you see this drawing going from now? What extra touches have we got to add?
I would say we were basically there, you know.
Ooh.
I think maybe because this is maybe slightly more orange, I'm just going to take a little bit more colour into there. Maybe just do a light sketch and then get my white pencil in.
Yeah.
Classic. And the last finishing touch is basically the whiskers.
Ah, yes, of course. That adds personality.
Yeah. So just start where these dots are and just add in some little whiskers.
Oh.
Add in a few on the other side as well.
So are you adding one whisker per dot, or are you just sort of doing it a bit more kind of haphazardly?
Yeah, a bit more haphazard, I suppose. I've only added in 1, 2, 3, 4. I've only added in 5, but I've drawn more dots than there are whiskers. So
sure.
I think I'm pretty much happy with that, you know.
I think it looks absolutely beautiful. I'm a little bit behind you. I've been clearly distracting myself, but I would never have been able to draw like this on my own. I'm just absolutely amazed. I'm definitely going to finish it up afterwards, but I'm quite happy with that.
Oh, that's actually brilliant. I'm so impressed.
I haven't finished his little tail, but we're getting there.
Oh, it's a brilliant drawing.
I've got a project now. This has been so much fun, genuinely.
It's really great to chat to you as well.
It's been so good, and I mean, definitely, I'm going to carry on tidying this up afterwards because I've just really enjoyed this. And even like me, if you're never going to be a professional artist, it's just a wonderful way to relax and express your creativity.
Absolutely. No, I think you could be.
Oh, thank you. I mean, you've been really successful at working with conservation organisations, like we were just saying, and sharing your work through social media. So what advice would you have for up-and-coming wildlife artists who want to get a bit more exposure for their art?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would just say, just start putting a work out there. You know, just set up your page on Instagram or whatever social media you choose. That's a great thing because it's so easy. You don't even have to use make a website or anything. And don't worry about how many likes you're getting, and don't let that sort of impact how you feel about your work. It's hard to do, but just remember that, because every bit of work that you do, you get better, and it always leads to more projects. So someone might see it and they might ask you to do something else, or reach out to friends and family and basically practice and get your work out there, and that's all you need to do, really.
Oh, that's very reassuring. Yeah, I think you're right, definitely right about the likes. It can, on social media, it can get a little bit, you know, all about the likes, can't it? So yeah, if you're enjoying what you're doing and you're putting your work out there, some people are going to see it and appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it really doesn't matter. You can only get X amount of likes, doesn't mean the drawing's not good.
Exactly.
Just sort of treat it as like an online portfolio that you can show people if they want to see the kind of thing that you do.
Yeah, that's a really good way to look at it. And for anyone who's watched this and now has a beautiful fox drawing, please do share it with us on your social media. Please, we'd love to see it. Whatever you think it looks like, I can guarantee we will think it looks brilliant. It'll help others find out about the event and try their hand at some nature art.
I can't wait to see them.
I know. So snap a photo of your drawing and share it on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Tag Festival of Nature. I believe that is at Fest of Nature on across your usual social medias, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and use the hashtag Fest of Nature 21. I'm going to be doing the same because if I'm asking other people to do it, I feel like I should probably do it myself. So that's the deal. Hashtag Fest of Nature 21. And Lauren, I keep talking about your artwork and your social media. So if people would like to see more of your work, where should they go?
So I'm at Lauren S.J. Cook on Twitter and Lauren_colours on Instagram. Yeah, I'd love to see all of your drawings. I can't wait. And thank you so much for having me. It's been brilliant.
No, I mean, I can say that people will definitely not regret checking out your beautiful work online. So thank you so much, Lauren, for your time today and for this wonderful tutorial. You genuinely made it so much more accessible than I could have hoped for. And I've just had a brilliant time chatting to you and hearing about your work.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, you too.
And thank you to everyone who's watched this and has been drawing along with us. If you've enjoyed this, please do make sure that you check out more of the 2021 Festival of Nature events. You can find out all about the content by going to their website and following them on social media. So on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, you'll find them at Fest of Nature. And there really is something for everyone to get involved with. Thank you so much for joining us, and see you soon.